What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Landlord Society podcast. I'm Charlie and you're here with HDK, and we help people replace their income through the Landlord Academy. Today, we're going to be talking about offset accounts, when it's a good idea to use them, how to optimize them, how to make them a good decision to build wealth in the property market.
That's right.
They're not always a good idea, but sometimes they're an incredible idea. And if you're not using them, you're leaving money on the table. So I made a video recently, HD, about this topic. It's got about 500,000 views at the moment, which is kind of cool. But what's cooler is the actual outcome if you use these correctly.
Exactly.
So that's what we're here to talk about today. It does involve a strategy where it might be better off to sell a property rather than hold on to it. Obviously, as investors, we always say you should never sell. Okay, never sell. But some people, right, are home owners. They still want to own their own home. We take the rent vesting approach with our strategy because we believe it's the most powerful, and it is, because you're optimizing for wealth, not lifestyle. But, we have that opinion where wealth leads to lifestyle. So that's another story in and of itself. However,
it's not an opinion, it's the truth.
It is the truth, right? Yeah, it is the truth. So, but there's still people that they buy their home, they want to upgrade their home. So do they sell their previous property and make that or make it an investment property and keep it? Now, we say never sell, but that's because we're renting.
Yeah.
So an offset account.
Another way of saying that is because we're making a lot of money investing. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if investing in properties was going to make more money than owning a home, which would you rather do?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know what I'd rather do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's the thing. So I think the dichotomy that you shared in the video was, is it better to just pay the loan down to build equity on a home?
Yeah. So let's say you've bought a house.
Yeah.
Okay, you bought your first house, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Scenario number one, you buy the house.
Yeah.
You pay it down.
Yeah,
So extra repayments into the mortgage.
Yeah.
So that's, which would mean you would have to use a redraw facility to actually access that equity to then buy another property.
Exactly right. So put some numbers around: $500,000 property, $400K loan.
Yeah.
You make another $100K, and over the course of a year, you pay 10 grand down into the loan, right, on top of your interest that you're paying, and so your loan is down to $300K. You got $200K equity sitting in there.
That's it. Now you've put all this extra cash in to pay this loan off faster. So you've already sunk money into this loan, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's great. It'll save you money in interest over the span of the mortgage.
Yeah.
However, if you want to build wealth, which is another video that I made recently, the numbers do stack up to continue investing. But in this situation, we're talking about the offset. So is it a good idea to pay down the mortgage or put the money in an offset, which has the same effective result?
Exactly right. Because you're still buying a second house still under your name, and it's all good. Yeah. Let's talk about the first scenario a little bit more, okay? Just for our listeners, because they're not as advanced as you are, Charlie. So with them, with the $200K that they have in equity, they go into a bank and say, hey, I would like to get another finance, to refinance, do a redraw, to draw, let's say, another $100K out, to then put that as a down payment. So they're basically borrowing that 80% again. So another $100K comes back into their account. And then they're using that to then buy another house, another $500,000 house with that one.
Now here's the thing though. When you redraw against equity in a property,
that's right,
the ATO they don't look at what you did with the money. They look at where the money is going, like what you're going to do with the money.
Well, before you talk about that though, Charlie, we need to tell people that the house number one will become an investment property because they bought house number two as their own occupier. So they've got house number one.
Let's do a clear
picture. That's why when they loan against house number one back to that 80%, even the loan is parked with house number one as an investment, and therefore it'll be tax deductible on the interest payments that you make, because that money is going to buy your second property, which you will then move into as a primary place of residence. That's when the ATO will look at that and go, well, hang on, that 100K is going towards your house, so your repayments will be higher here because you borrowed that 100K as a down payment, and you borrow the rest of it to buy. Let's say it's another 500K, so the whole house is on loan at the moment. Not to mention, if you want to do this, you got to have crazy serviceability to do this too, right?
Exactly.
But that's what's happening. So that's scenario one. Okay, you pay the loan down, right? You're saying pay the loan down, and then you're basically using that loan, that pay down as an equity to then do a redraw on the second home, which you will then move into, turning your first property into an investment property. That's right. And then you will then pay a big loan repayment ticket on the second home. New home where you're living in there. Yeah. Scenario 1. What's scenario number 2 again?
So scenario number 2 is the same. However, instead of paying off the mortgage, you have those extra repayments, that big fund built up in an offset account.
Yeah.
So rather than redrawing against the equity in your first home to buy the second home, you can just pull cash and use that to purchase another property.
Exactly right.
And that way you're maximizing the debt on your investment property,
which is your first property.
Which is the first property, not the home.
And which you had lived in, but now no longer.
Exactly, yes. And that's what we want, because we don't want to maximize the debt on our home.
Yeah.
Because that's non-tax deductible
repayments. That's right. Yeah, on the interest.
And that's where you can save a lot. That's where people leave a lot of money on the table if they're in that situation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You want to maximize debt on your investment properties because that's tax deductible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. So, no, I think that's it's a pretty big concept to unpack. To unpack.
It's a very specific scenario, but the more I thought about it, I was like, hang on.
Whoa, hold up, Landlord Society. Are you sick and tired of the rat race and you want to start building wealth with property and generate passive income?
Then come and drop us a follow on Instagram and DM us the word Landlord.
The word what, Charlie?
The word Landlord, like the Landlord Society.
Okay, wait, Charles, what's our Instagram handle again?
At landlord.society.
You heard him, everybody. DM us the word Landlord to our Instagram to learn more about property investing. Now, back to the podcast.
So many people have reached out to me and been like, I want to sell my property or I'm going to move into another property and then I'll just rent this out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait.
Yeah, but how you structuring
this is worth talking about.
This is worth talking about, because a lot of people do change their principal place of residence because they might need to move because of their work situations or whatever, but they need a home that they want to live in.
There's another thing I want to say though. Because the problem on paper, this works. In reality, it's a bit different, because the reality is that if you have an offset account is money that you can spend. Okay, it's liquid. You have ability to just spend that whenever you want. If you don't have the willpower of God, you're gonna spend it. You're just gonna fucking spend the money in the offset account. You're not gonna just let it. They said it's a good idea to leave it in there and build it up. No, you're a human. You're probably gonna dip into it now and then, especially when times get tough or whatever it is. So that's why selling the first property can be a good idea. That is one of the only situations where I would recommend that. And that's only if you're moving into a new home and you're owner occupying that home. Okay?
Yeah.
We wouldn't do that because we are rent vesting.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have a house to sell anyway. Okay? Because all of the property that we own is investment property, which is tax deductible debt.
Tax deductible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You with that income, you can actually buy a home. I mean, I understand home ownership is a dream that a lot of Aussies do, embody, right?
They do embody that. It's ingrained, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I feel like the fast track to that is to build up a property portfolio that will fund that.
Yeah, fund. Exactly right. So I think the whole issue with this dilemma is the fact that the dilemma even exists in the first place, which is the mindset of the people who are trying to literally go from house to house to house, spending big money to establish loans and, repayments, especially right now with a lot of properties that are negatively geared. You're effectively paying more money to own a house than to rent a house as well.
Yeah.
Right? For the amount of cash flow that's going out, renting actually is a lot better. But having said that, then you then have to come up with a plan to then supplicate that outlay that you're making on a weekly basis, which is a weekly rental, right? But that also doesn't come with an actual strategy either as well. So I think in that scenario, and another problem with that scenario is that how a lot of people seem to believe that they're building equity in a property when they're paying the money down.
I know, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's absolutely laughable, that notion. Is that so going back to the first scenario that we looked at, boys and girls. So basically people are sort of saying, I've got a $400,000 loan. I've paid down $100,000 worth of it. So I've got about $200,000 equity. Literally, you just keep that money in your bank account. It's okay. But instead of keeping it in your bank account, put it in an offset so that it then reduces the principal, right? So that
reduce the principal much faster, because your repayment stays the same.
It has to stay the same. That's in Australia. It will stay the same.
Which means a bigger portion of that payment that you're making is going towards principal, not interest.
Exactly right. And also, it's also worth noting that a lot of people out there may not have variable interest rates. So because when the interest rates rise up, a lot of the consumers, they choose to have a fixed interest rate because they're so afraid of where it's going to go, right? So we look, and variable interest rate are the only interest rates that are going to offer the offset account products as well. And offset accounts are also pre-planned. You know, with a switched on finance broker, they will then establish that as an advice for you. But that will come down on your sort of cash flow ability from your job or your business, you know, your ability to make money, simply put. But having said that, like people, you know, go backpedaling a little bit, like people think that putting 100K into the loan is building another $100,000 equity. The way you haven't built any equity. You've just you've exchanged equity for liability. That's what you've done. Ideally not the outcome you want. You want as much liability as possible if that liability is sustainable.
Yes.
Yeah. And property, time and time again, with the right strategy, it does become sustainable. So in property, the person with the most debt actually wins.
Maximizing good debt.
Good debt. That's right. Look. So maximizing tax deductible debt is incredibly important.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you're getting the loan to buy, you know, Gucci bags, you know what I mean? Which is so silly in so many ways. Right? But I think the focus should be had on, you know, with any property that you own, whether it's your own or investment properties, right? You got to actually have a strategy that builds its equity from a market perspective and from a product and an asset perspective.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's a real. That's the strategy that's the outlook that you probably need more than trying to sort of push pennies around. Because at the end of the day, right, even in the two scenarios that we have, it's not a wealthy person's question that they're asking. You know, like, you know, the options that they're playing with at the moment, it's like, well, either options, you'll live a pretty mediocre life anyway, you know, sort of, because, you know, even if you end up with another property with a redraw, right, you're still making, you know, still got a $500,000, 100% LVR, let's say, you know, not 100% LVR, effectively that's what it will become. If you bought another $500,000 home, you know, at, 6% to the dollar in the interest rate at the moment, you know, you're going to be paying like 35 grand a year in interest plus, you know, principal as well. So that's quite heavy for the middle class in Australia as well. You know what I mean? So I think, to then grind out and grow out of that, the mindset shouldn't be in that decision phase, but more also on the understanding of how can I then build equity, how can I build cash flow, how can I build portfolio out of my situation, and whether you decide to rent or decide to buy a home that you want to live in will purely become a lifestyle choice that you can make.
Yeah.
Ultimately. But for those of you who wrote really interesting comments on that video, I hope this video was helpful. This podcast has been helpful to actually iron those kinks out. If it hasn't, continue to tear us apart on the comments.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah, we love it. We enjoyed it. We actually had a really good laugh actually going through those comments.
Yeah, there was some doozies in there.
Yeah, some doozies in there. And you know, it's also really refreshing to see some people who actually just get it and click straight away.
Yeah.
And you know, and you know, those people, well, we commend your knowledge on that, of course. So well done. But stay tuned. We got a lot of interesting videos coming out on Instagram. Join us on our Discord if you want access to any of these things. Just
free
DM
Discord.
Free Discord.
Yeah.
Jump on in where we have some high level and very in-depth discussions like this one, where you know you could really change the course of your property decisions into the future. So stay tuned, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Cheers, guys.
Peace.